What's everybody doing? Welcome back to Into the Stands, episode 5. Got a lot to talk about today, and we're a little later than usual. About 14 minutes. We're supposed to be starting at 5, but it's all good. It's all good. We got the NBA season starting up. Mlb Playoffs. Yankees won. Mets. Different story.
That'll be fun to talk about for
Reviewing our
sure.
predictions for that. We're gonna be discussing the NFL, Week 6, recap of Week 5. So I guess we'll start off with what's coming up, the NBA season.
NBA season. Let's dive into that first. I mean, we'll dive into that quickly.
What do you guys want to do?
I mean, let's start off with MVP. I mean, MVP. We'll dive in that first. Of course, we'll dive into the finals afterwards. But real quick, I'll dive into your MVP predictions because, of course, the season's starting soon. It's gonna be an interesting season to see how many. My big thing is how many teams are going to tank for Wembanyama. That's going to be fun to watch. I think there's going to be about 5 or 6 teams or so that really tank for this man. I feel bad for everyone that has to watch that. But MVP prediction, I'm going to go with Luka Doncic. I think when he's on, he is unstoppable. I feel like he's better than Giannis because he can actually pass the ball more effectively. So I think with the unit around Luka Doncic, I think like the Mavericks are going to be a solid team once again. And I'm going to go Luka Doncic as my MVP this year, averaging almost a triple-double the entire year. Chris, what do you got?
I'm going to be honest. I'm pretty much pulling like a piece of paper out of a hat with this one. I feel like, in a way. It's not a terrible pick, I would say, but I'm just going to pick Jason Tatum, right? Losing in the finals, 24 years old, one of the best younger players in the NBA, right? I think obviously losing the final, I think he's going to have more determination, right? Going to try to bring the Celtics team back to the playoffs and back to the finals. I'm going Jason Tatum. He's really good. He's not on my fantasy team. I chose Kevin Durant and Joel Embiid over him, but I think that was definitely the better choice. But Jason Tatum gonna have a really good season, I think.
So, like Robbie, I'm gonna go with Luka here. But what I'm gonna do is also I'm gonna talk about Luka, but I'm also gonna throw out 2 other names I think very well could be in the running here. So first, getting into Luka Doncic. So Luka led the Mavericks, to the playoffs last year. They weren't necessarily a high seed, but yet they had a very good run. They took down Utah, I believe, and then they went in. They won that series against the Phoenix Suns, where Luka basically single-handedly beat that roster on his own. And that's really what Luka has been doing. I mean, truly has come to a point now where you can argue that Luka Doncic is one of the most valuable players in the entirety of the NBA. And I think that will continue. I think that Luka puts up huge numbers. I think, like Robbie said, we could be looking at near a triple-double season. And I really do think that at this point in time, I think that Luka is the most logical pick for this MVP award. But my 2 other names I want to throw out there. Now, I'm not saying that they're going to win the award, but I do think they're going to be big contenders. The first one I'm going to go with is a little bit more obvious. The second one is kind of more of a sleeper pick, I guess I'll say. So the first one is Ja Morant. And now Ja Morant had a very big year last year. The Grizzlies were the 2nd seed in the West. They looked very dominant for that whole entire year. They ended up losing the playoffs to the Warriors, but, granted, no one's going to fault them for that. The Warriors are the more experienced team. The Warriors went on and won the finals. But I think that Ja Morant, if he keeps it up, I think that he'll have a great individual season. He's a very exciting player. You see very often that point guards usually do win these awards. You see Derrick Rose, Stephen Curry. You see Russell Westbrook even back in the day. So I think that Ja Morant is very much a big player for this award. My other pick I'm going to go with here, now this is more of a less likely to happen in the sleeper pick. I'm going to go with Zion Williamson. And the reason why I'm going to go with Zion is because I really like what the Pelicans are looking like right now. The head coach, had a great year last year. I believe Willie Green, he actually did a very good job coaching that team last year. And even without Zion, they were the 8th seed in the Western Conference. Now, you add Zion back, a guy who was averaging, I believe, about 27, 28 points per game before he last left. I think that Pelicans team could be a very big contender in this Western Conference. I'm not saying they're going to win a championship, but top 6 seed, I think, is very much well in the realm of possibility. And if the Pelicans go even higher than that, it's going to be because of Zion. I think that Zion Williamson could be a contender for this award, granted that he stays healthy. So, yeah, I have Luka winning the MVP, but I do like the potential that Ja and Zion bring to this race.
2 guys from the same draft class. I went 1 and 2, Zion out of Duke and Ja Morant. I remember watching him in the NCAA tournament that one year at Murray State. The year that I think everyone and their mother picked Murray State to beat Marquette, and then Murray State blew the hell out of Marquette, which was great to watch because you really got to see what Ja Morant can do. But I love Ja Morant. He's been you really saw him come out last year. Is like, yeah, I'm really good at basketball. I can put up 30 points a game if I really wanted to. And with a Grizzlies team that you add in some other key contributors, they are really good. They are really good. I feel like the Timberwolves, I think, are a good team out of that side of the bracket. Clippers, I think, if they're actually healthy and competent. And then you got the Golden State Warriors, who I think are still the team to beat in the West. I feel like with Curry, Jordan Poole being solid, Clay, if he's actually healthy for once, and everyone else in that team, Wiggins, if he finds a way to keep his form, I think the Warriors are going to win the West again. Now, will everyone stay healthy? I don't know, but let's move on to your finals predictions. Chris, we'll start with you because I think your finals prediction, I'm very intrigued to hear this.
Well, I think the easy pick to go with, right, is the Boston Celtics. I know you said their head coach, which I completely agree, right? That's not a great thing to start off the season with, the whole thing with the head coach, right, and then having to bring in an interim coach for the season. But obviously, I think they're the easy pick. But if I had to go with an underdog, trying to similar to kind of like, not like my MVP pick, but a little more out of the blue, I'm gonna say the Cleveland Cavaliers. I just think adding Donovan Mitchell, they had already a very young, solid team. Darius Garland, right at the top, is who you think of. Great point guard. Adding Donovan Mitchell, I think that's just another star player to add to that very young team that made the playoffs. That's it.
It's a fun group to watch.
That's all I gotta say.
It's a fun group to watch. It's a really fun group to watch with Darius. I remember watching Darius Garland last year. He was on my fantasy team. Good thing that you mentioned that earlier.
On my fantasy team.
Darius Garland, I feel like he's one of the most underrated point guards in the National Basketball Association.
I mean, I remember seeing his numbers. I mean, I didn't really know who he was until I picked him up on fantasy. He was really, really good.
Because they have a system in Cleveland that actually works for the players they use. You really don't see that in the NBA because you feel like systems nowadays, they really go like, you try to build it around one person and that one superstar. Cleveland,
now, but
they
have more pieces.
Now, Cleveland, the difference between them and the rest of them, with Jared Allen, Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland, everyone else they have on that team, they're really balanced. And I feel like the balance they have can make them a actual legitimate contender out of the East. An Eastern Conference that's kind of a mess. But it feels like everyone's just like kind of level with each other. Like you see the Nets, like they have Kyrie and Durant and nobody else.
Yeah.
Miami, let's go with them. They have Jimmy Butler, Tyler Hero, I guess, and nobody else. Now it's a two-man game. Now the Celtics are different. I feel like it's going to really come down to the Celtics and the Cavs who implodes first. And you mentioned the Celtics Cavs coach situation. I think that's going to be a big downfall for them because I thought who they had last year, I thought he was pretty. Actually, I remember saying that last year that I didn't think he was going to be good because I really like Brad Stevens for some reason. And he actually had a good system. I have for a while, actually, because I thought he was actually a competent coach. And it turns out that no one liked him. So I feel like with the Celtics, it's really going to come down to how their head coach, their new one, actually adapts to the NBA, the style of play.
Who's their new coach?
I don't even know. Joe Mazzulla. Well, that's going to be fun to watch. That's the thing at Iona. But Colin, let's hear your pick real quick.
So my NBA Finals prediction. Now this is going to be something that I actually picked a couple years ago, and it's two teams who I feel still, when fully healthy, are going to be two teams that are going to be the best in the NBA. So coming out of the Eastern Conference, so the Boston Celtics won it all last year, or won the Eastern Conference last year. But I'm going to go for the team who won it the year prior, the Milwaukee Bucks. And the reason why I'm going to go for the Bucks is because I feel that in general, just looking at these Eastern Conference teams, I feel the Bucks answer the most questions. Miami, Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, Tyler Hero, it's a great core for sure. But do we think that core is as talented as Milwaukee's with Giannis Antetokounmpo? I personally do not think so. The Boston Celtics, they had a great run last season, but obviously the firing of Ime Udoka, as we just said, Joe Mazzulla now coming in as head coach. I don't know how that's going to go. I think that's going to take a while for him to adapt. People actually forget this, but the Boston Celtics are about at a 500 record last season until they actually bought into the Ime Udoka system. So I'm sure there's going to be similar growing pains with Joe Mazzulla, and I'm just not sure how the Celtics are going to respond, especially trying to do that 2 years in a row. The Philadelphia 76ers, James Harden and Joel Embiid on paper looks like it might be the best team in this conference. But as we all know, James Harden, it seemed like his play has kind of fallen off to a degree. We didn't see a lot of the same James Harden of old last season. And just in general, can we trust Joel Embiid to continue to stay healthy? He stayed healthy last year. I think he should have won the MVP last year. Personally, I would have had him as my MVP over Nikola Jokic. But, asking him to do that once again, keep up that level of play, it's going to be hard to do, especially for a center with an injury history like himself. Other teams that are out there, I mean, you look at maybe, the Chicago Bulls. I mean, I don't really trust them necessarily. I mean, DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine is a fun duo, but I don't expect a lot of postseason success. The Atlanta Hawks are a new team, now with Trae Young and DeJounte Murray, but I'm not convinced that will get them to the top of the Eastern Conference. Chris mentioned Cleveland, an exciting group for sure, but once again, not sure how they're going to be. I think they'll be a fun watch. I think they'll be top of the Eastern Conference, possibly. Maybe you're looking at a 4 or 5 seed for Cleveland, but just in general, the Milwaukee Bucks are the most well-rounded team in this Eastern Conference. Giannis Antetokounmpo, Drew Holiday, Chris Middleton, already proven to be a championship team. They won the championship back in 2021, did it against the Phoenix Suns team, which I thought was very good at that time. Actually, they came back from 2-0 and won 4 straight games in that final series. So looking at it in general, I don't see how you really can pick against the Bucks. I think that Giannis will have another dominant season, and the Bucks will go to the NBA Finals. Now, for my team out of the Western Conference, I'm going to go for a team which actually ended up missing the playoffs last season in the West, and that team is the Los Angeles Clippers. Now, granted, I do understand the Los Angeles Clippers have a lot of injury concerns. Kawhi Leonard and Paul George have been known to get hurt at times. But if this team can stay healthy, I think that they're the best team in this. I think they'll be the best team in the Western Conference this season. Now, Kawhi Leonard, let's start with him. So this is going to start. I'm going to get into this more as we go on talking about the NBA later on into the show or later on to future episodes. But I am a San Antonio Spurs fan, so naturally, I don't have a lot of good feelings towards Kawhi Leonard at the moment. He left us in a pretty bad way, but hey, regardless, I'm getting ready to tank for Wembanyama this year, so we'll look forward to that. But regardless, Kawhi Leonard is still, in my opinion, easily a top 5 player in the game. I'd even argue when he's fully healthy, he could be a top 3. A guy who's really dominant, really puts teams on his back, and I think he'll keep up that level of play even when he comes back off his ACL injury. Paul George is another guy. People forget Paul George almost had the Clippers to the NBA Finals without Kawhi Leonard in 2021. They lost in 6 games to the Phoenix Suns. And now you're adding John Wall to this team. I mean, John Wall is not going to be expected to do a lot. Sure, he probably will not be the same John Wall that we saw in Washington. But just as a veteran point guard, I think that will work very well with Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. So my NBA Finals prediction is Milwaukee Bucks and Los Angeles Clippers. And if you're going to ask me who I think is going to win this series, I think that it would be a very interesting series. First off, I want to say, I think that looking at Kawhi Leonard and Paul George possibly guarding Giannis on the perimeter, I mean, that's going to be fascinating for sure. But I know that Milwaukee can put it together, so I'll go with the Milwaukee Bucks as my 2023 NBA champions.
That's a fun pick. I'll make my pick real quick. My pick was I'm gonna do something that if you saw last week was really lame. That I picked a former World Series. I'm doing it again. Sorry, but I am doing Celtics Warriors again because I think those are the 2 best teams in each conference. I feel like with their experience in the playoffs, I think the Celtics will find a way because Jason Tatum is really good. They have a decent team around him. I think the Warriors, they're still really good. They have probably the best team on paper. I mean, the Clippers, you mentioned them, they're pretty good. The Timberwolves, they're solid. Memphis, they're solid. But all in all, I think you see a good Warriors team make it out. I think the Celtics won the championship despite me talking trash about their head coach and not knowing what they're doing. The Celtics won the finals. But let's keep it on the West Coast. And my bad, Chris.
Well, I'm also gonna go. I'm gonna pick the Warriors to win it all. Actually, again, I really think. I think
they're picking Warriors Cavs finals.
That's a fun pick. That's a fun one.
Very different Cavaliers team than what we're used to seeing in those Warriors Cavs finals. But I am gonna say that the Warriors win this one. I just think they're just clearly the best team on paper.
Yeah.
I like the Clippers pick that you made, Colin. I have Kawhi Leonard on my team for a reason. On my fantasy team, that is, because I think he's going to have a good year. Hopefully he's healthy, or for the Clippers' sake at least, and my fantasy team. Right? But I'm just going to go with the Warriors. I just think that team is so good. I know there's a whole situation going on right now with Draymond Green and Jordan Poole, but I think they'll put that aside, hopefully, and I just think they're a good, very good team. And I think that Cavs team will go far. I am predicting them to go to the finals. But I think they're going to fall short at the end.
Yeah.
I think they're going to.
It's a fun story.
The Warriors are going to win in 6.
It's a fun story. But let's keep it on the West Coast, the MLB playoffs. And let's dive right in with somehow they found a way to lose the New York Mets. We go from one coast to the other. The New York Mets. I don't think anyone's shocked by this. I mean, we are because we all picked them. But the New York Mets went into play San Diego at Citi Field. Unfortunately, I was not able to go. It looked like a phenomenal environment, and the Mets do a tradition and find ways to lose games late in the year. They lost in 3 games to the Padres after Joe Musgrove wiped the floor with them on Sunday. It was terrible. It was, I think for you Yankees fans, it was hilarious. But at the end of the day, it was painful to watch. I stopped watching the game because I knew it was over in like the 7th inning, knowing the Mets not having the best comeback skills. But it's a real shame because Max Scherzer got lit up in game 1. And right when you saw that, like, you have to look at this team now and it's like, well, we won 100+ games. We still found a way to lose. Now we have free agents. What do? I mean, they are rumored to be close to somewhat re-signing Edwin Diaz, which is positive. They're close to possibly re-signing Lugo. I don't know why. I mean, I know why because he's real. Seth Lugo, when he's on, is good.
He's been around.
He's been around for what 10, 12 years ish with this club, but I feel like he's too inconsistent. So I feel like if the Mets want to actually contend, they need better bullpen arms. Lugo can be there, but like in the role they have him, it wouldn't make sense. Let's see what you guys think with the Mets and Padres to start right there.
Well, first I'll say that Friday night it was just the whole thing is just a disgrace really for the Mets.
Wow.
I mean, the narrative around the Mets the past couple years since 2016, and really, I feel like even with them going to the World Series, losing in the World Series, losing in the wild card in 2016, right? There's always been this narrative around the Mets that they're the lovable losers, that
they're always one piece away.
The somewhat lovable losers, right? Not everybody loves them.
That's true.
Like the Chicago Cubs, I would say, were the main lovable losers until 2016. But the Mets just had this narrative around them with the Yankee fans, or most Yankee fans and fans around baseball, that they will always, disappoint in some way. Whether that's what they've done the past couple of years, which is just not make the playoffs, just not be good. And what they'll do, they'll get great seasons out of Jacob deGrom and not score a run for him. They'll not have a good season from Lindor last year. They will. What's another thing? Like the whole, the 5-man rotation that they had.
The rotation falling apart and getting injured left and right.
Yeah, the whole, we're going to have 5 Cy Young Award winners in one rotation. Harvey, the whole Matt Harvey thing. Right?
Oh, I remember that.
Zach Wheeler, who should have stayed. That was awful.
I was not sure. I remember when that happened. I was not surprised he left because I knew the Mets were going to lowball him with who we had at owner still.
Exactly, yeah.
He got overpaid with the Phillies, and look what he's done. He looked really good in that series in Philadelphia. We'll dive into that one in a second.
Yeah. And we see, I mean, even the beginnings of the Edwin Diaz, Robinson Cano trade, right? Where it's looking like the Mariners won that trade. But 2022 was different. It was everything that the Mets have been criticized for the past couple of years. You finally weren't able to say those things about the Mets because everything was going right. They had this closer, Edwin Diaz, who had one of the best closer seasons in a very long time, right? Really, really good, unhittable. You had the starting rotation. Max Scherzer was incredible. Jacob deGrom came back towards the end of the season, right? I mean, the offense was clicking. It wasn't fantastic. There was the point in the season where it was struggling, as it usually does. But you were getting a bounce-back season from Lindor. Alonso hit 40 bombs again. McNeil won the batting title. And Brandon Nimmo in there, who's also a free agent, had a nice season. Starling Marte and these other guys that you signed were good for what they were brought here to do. I mean, finally, with this new ownership of Steve Cohen, it seems like things are really turning around. And they are, I think. I think the Mets have a bright future. I think they have a lot of youth that they, thank God, kept, right, and not traded for Wilson Contreras, because I don't know how Wilson Contreras would have solved all of your problems. Really, I've been hearing Met fans.
He actually would have hit over 200 at catcher.
No,
our catching is horrible, and I feel like he would have actually solved it, but I think we would have traded too much.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You would have gotten another bat, but what was that going to do for a guy who's a rental? Yeah, and they have Francisco Alvarez, who thank God you kept. I mean, you traded for Javi Baez a year ago. It was a good trade at first. Now the Cubs have a really good young prospect that could have been in the Mets system. You can't keep them all, I get that, but the Mets have a good farm system. They have a bright future nonetheless. But yeah, guys are free agents now. Edwin Diaz, hopefully you sign him. Seth Lugo, I'm not entirely sure what his numbers were this year, but I don't know if that's something it's kind of iffy. DeGrom's a free agent. That's the big one. And there are some stars. Aaron Judge is a free agent. What goes on there? I hope to God not. I hope he stays with the Yanks. But hey, I mean, if you're the Mets, you have to be in on him. Like you can't say that just because he's a Yankee, you want this whole Yankees Mets rivalry to be consistent, right? Go after Aaron Judge. I'm being honest, right? I don't want you to get him, but if you just go after him, do something. Like you need to do that if you want to win, because I think the Mets need to add some bats. Brandon Nimmo is a guy you might want to come back. Obviously, if you bring Judge and you're not going to bring him, not going to bring back Brandon Nimmo. If you don't get Judge, I mean, Ohtani's a free agent in a year and a half. I think DeGrom, the whole thing with the rotation. I don't know who else is a free agent. I think Bassett's a free agent, right?
Chris Bassett's a free agent. Taijuan Walker is, I believe, has a player option. I think the only starter, I believe, from this rotation this year that's actually going to be on the team guaranteed is Max Scherzer.
Who is also, I mean, that was an awful way to go down.
Yeah, but big free agents that you want to look at. There's
starting pitcher. I don't know.
There's a decent.
Do you know any?
Not really.
Is Aaron Nola a free agent?
Yes,
he is.
I believe he is. Yes, he's a player option, which I think he's going to decline because his value's absolutely crazy.
Can the Yankees get him after they get Judge?
I mean,
I hope so. I mean, we need another starter.
Do you though? Good. I mean, your rotation's solid enough.
I mean, Jameson Taillon's free agent.
I mean,
hey.
If you can actually turn around Montas is a free agent. I think Montas.
No, we don't know if we have Montas another year.
You do?
Yeah.
I didn't actually know that, but Colin, let's hear your take on this series real quick.
Well, first off, I just want to say I'm very sorry for you, Robbie. I have to imagine that was very tough to watch, but unfortunately, that's kind of what the Mets have been known for as of late, or at least their history. But it looked like it was going to be a great season. I remember even at a point, it looked like that, the Mets were really ahead of the Yankees. If you told me at this point that one of those teams were going to collapse and fall off, it looked like for a very long time in that summer that the Yankees were going to be that team. It looked like the Yankees possibly, could lose the division and end up, having a playoff flame out. But the Mets, and that ended up happening to the Mets. And the reason why is because they just happened to be in the same division as the defending World Series champion Atlanta Braves. And the Mets won the exact same amount of games as the Braves. They both won 101 games, yet the Braves still got the division on tiebreakers. So even after all that, and this is something I believe I mentioned last week, the Mets had a 101 win season, and yet Mets fans still left that regular season feeling very just, sad and kind of feeling like you still missed out because you had to play the wild card game. And it was a best of 3, but however, it was still at Citi Field. But the Mets turned to Max Scherzer first. He got the ball, the guy who they spent so much money in the offseason paying. And he gave up 7 earned runs in 4 2/3 innings. Now, granted, I don't expect that from Max Scherzer going forward, but still, just having him do that when you needed him the most definitely was very tough. Jacob deGrom did his job. They won game 2, but then game 3 was a Joe Musgrove game. Actually a point there where they were checking his ear. A very, controversial thing that happened there. But ultimately Joe Musgrove really just had one of the better pitching performances I've seen in the postseason. Mets only had 1 hit in that entire game, and just a sad way to go out. Really uneventful way to go out in the season that really seemed like it was going to be one of the best the Mets have really had in a while. I mean, still is. You still won 101 games, but just to go out like that, I have to imagine it's got to be tough. So once again, very sorry about that, Robbie.
I mean, the Mets know how to make pitchers look great in the postseason. It's so weird. You think of
traditions.
Musgrove, Bumgarner in 2016,
Yordan Ventura, Edison Volquez.
No, the one
the Royals.
Johnny Cueto.
Yeah.
Complete game
when
game 2.
And then Volquez threw like 7 shutout innings in game 3. But let's go into another series that's been a lot of fun. Toronto-Seattle. Which
that wasn't very fun.
I mean, well, it wasn't fun for Blue Jays fans. Also sorry for you guys. But this was the pick that by the way, for those who didn't know, everyone got one series right here on the dot. And I'll start with mine because why not? Toronto-Seattle, I said Toronto was going to lose in 2 games for the reason that their bullpen is not very good. What did they do? They blew a 7-run lead in game 2 against the Mariners rotation falling apart. And I was right about that. And the Mariners advanced. They're currently playing the Astros live in game 2.
They're up 2-1 right now. I mean, what an awful game for game 1. In game 1 for them. You saw that?
Game 1 was Castillo, no?
Game 1, no. Game 1 was Gilbert.
Oh, Gilbert, yeah.
And you saw what happened. Right?
Yes.
That was.
I do.
Wow. I mean, I can't say I entirely feel for you Mariners fans because you've had a lot of fun recently, but I mean, historically, no. So historically, yeah, I feel bad. But that was a very
Painful.
no, that I'm talking about the game against the Blue Jays.
Yeah.
That was a very unicorn of a game. Real unicorn of a game.
It was.
I should say.
It was a perfect way
you're
for.
never gonna find that. And then this last game one against the Astros was also a unicorn game. I mean, the team's known for their bullpen. They give up. They bring in Robbie Ray to close it out.
You brought in Robbie Ray because he hasn't pitched in a while, and
I
he
don't
left.
know. I don't know. I would.
That was an absolute nuke,
I'm
by
not
the
trying
way.
to be a Monday morning quarterback or anything.
Yeah.
But, all right, I get hindsight's 2020, but isn't like a Paul Sewald better against the lefty with the slider versus Robbie Ray?
Oh, I think a lot of their both. Drew Schreckenreiter, I think, has a better slider in this situation.
Know, to be honest.
But
I mean, do you not have another lefty?
Well, I believe their bullpen was used a lot in game one.
And I don't know what Robbie Ray
was a
I don't know what Robbie
the pitch,
Ray
by the way, was a
fastball.
Two-seam fastball down the middle, and that was an absolute
Why are you
nuke.
throwing that?
Because
you should be throwing the slider.
It was mislocated. If you look back, it was mislocated.
You should be throwing the slider there.
That is true.
I mean, you should got to get him off balance. I don't get that, to be honest.
But
you can't say you expect him on trouble. He's a starting pitcher.
Yeah.
Why is he coming out to close the game?
Because that's something that a lot of teams we've seen experiment with in the past and have all failed.
Yeah, I mean, Patrick Corbin is completely random. Like the only one I can think of that's working.
I remember
and Madison Bumgarner.
I remember one. Johnny Cueto was one back when he was with the Reds. They did that once, and I remember there was another one. The Mets did that one time. I don't remember.
I mean, there are times you have to do it.
Yes.
Like the Astros should have in 2019.
Yes.
With Garrett Cole.
No, the Astros did with Charlie Morton. Back in when they won the World Series.
But I'm saying in 2019 that
yes,
they should have got Garrett Cole.
Oh no, I totally agree with that. But it was a weird series. Mariners, congrats. You won a playoff series. You did better than the Mets. That's all I'll say on that. But I think we should each dive into the picks we got right. So Colin, we'll let you dive right into it with the Phillies and the Cardinals, a series that me and Chris got horribly wrong. And let's hear your take on it real quick.
Robbie, I remember we actually just watched the video before we went on air today. Robbie actually gave me a look after I picked the Philadelphia Phillies in 2 games. Well, who's looking now? Philadelphia Phillies won in 2 games, like I said. And like I said, Aaron Nola and Zach Wheeler, man, phenomenal performances.
Oh my God.
So, taking a look at this series, in game 1, the Phillies came back and had a huge rally in that 9th inning. They actually scored all 6 of their runs in the 9th inning, winning 6-3. Michael Kay was calling this game, which is very weird to watch as a Yankee fan. Michael Kay was saying "see ya" on Cardinals and Phillies plays, which was very strange. But Zach Wheeler in 6 1/3, 0 runs given up. You go over to game 2 with Aaron Nola. Aaron Nola in game 2.
Great.
6 2/3, 0 runs. So, like I said, Zach Wheeler and Aaron Nola really came to play. And just with this Phillies offense in general, they're kind of hit and miss. They can be hot and cold, but when they're hot, this lineup can do a lot of damage, which is what you saw there. Currently in the series against the Braves, they actually took a game. We're tied going back to Philadelphia, and I think that that's not what I predicted. I predicted the Braves are going to sweep them in the divisional series, so the Phillies are doing even better than I thought. So good for you, Phillies. So we'll see what happens when we go back to Philadelphia. But Phillies doing really good. They're both the Phillies and the Braves in the NL East. Once again, I'm very sorry to see that as a Mets fan, but yeah, the Phillies doing pretty good. Chris, how about you go into your pick?
Well, just to go further with that Phillies pick, I said how I'm happy. I want the Philly, even though my World Series pick is now completely ruined. I'm actually happy the Phillies won because they're such a shallow team on paper. They really are. A lot of guys underperform, and now they're overperforming, and I'm happy for them. And I know why am I defending a Philadelphia team, right? Like I actually don't mind most Philadelphia teams except the Eagles, but the Philadelphia, their fan base is very incompetent. It's a good fan base. They're diehard fans, but I see they boo their players a lot too, like Yankee fans. But Yankee fans, I think, are more justified when it comes to that. But I'll get to the Cleveland Guardians Tampa Bay Rays series where I think I said they were going to win in 2 games.
You did.
I?
Both of you did. I think, no, you said it was going to be in 3. And you said it was in 2. You said it in 2. You got around the money. You did.
Right,
you got around the money. Yeah.
Well, I do remember saying that both of them were going to be 1-run games, right? One-run games. And that's exactly what it was. I mean, you're talking a 15-inning thriller. Or was it a thriller?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't even know what you call that game.
It was a very interesting game, but a game of, just to show how good those teams' pitchers were. And I mentioned, right, Cleveland's bullpen is incredible.
You did mention that with Clase and
Clase.
Karinchak had a good series.
And I even mentioned some of the underrated guys. There's this one guy, I'm telling you, his name is Sam Henkes. He pitched 3 innings. He's unsung hero of Game 2. Pitching,
He
everyone
is.
talks about
That's
Oscar Gonzalez. That was a shot off Corey Kluber's slurve. I mean, Pat Hengis, or whatever his name is,
Sam.
three innings shutout in relief.
That was
Cleveland fans finally cheered for Corey Kluber again.
that was funny. That I did remember my pick. I mentioned
Beautiful.
the
Right.
Tampa Bay starting pitching being really good. They allowed 2 runs in 12 innings. I think because McClanahan went 7, allowed 2 earned, and Glass now actually looked like his old self and got yanked early, which was story of the Rays. They find ways in big games to pull pitchers way too early. We saw that with Blake Snell in the World Series. If everyone remembers that from a couple of years ago. But the big thing about this series was where the hell were the offenses? I don't think they were in Cleveland because how many runs per score? 5?
No, I don't.
I think it was 5.
4 runs.
Oh, 4 runs. 4 runs, yeah.
It's crazy.
4 combined runs. That is as many as San Diego had in 1 inning off Max Scherzer, which is hilarious. But Cleveland, congratulations. You actually won a playoff series. But the fun part was they hit it off Corey Kluber.
Yeah.
You mentioned
definitely.
that. I'm like, the story of the Rays, they just find ways to that was another instance where starting pitchers closing out games does not work. It does not work. Please stop doing it. It's not fun. I mean, everyone wants to see that closer that throws 103 or something.
It's hard to find. I mean, no, it's not
I
hard
mean,
to find.
the Cardinals have 2 of
It
them.
gets to the point where you gotta have, you kind of have to do. I mean, they did it too. The Cardinals.
Oh my
they
God.
brought in Jordan Montgomery.
Yes, they did. But at least Jordan Montgomery's actually. Jordan Montgomery's a phenomenal story. That he looked good in Game 2.
Yeah, he did.
He looked shockingly good. I bet the Yankees still had him though.
You know who else looked good though? I guess we might as well get into this. How about Harrison Bader?
Oh
New
my
York Yankees.
Yeah.
Yankees win Game 1 against Cleveland. Right? Is there anything else you want to talk about?
I mean, Yankees winning Game 1. I didn't really watch.
I will say. I mean,
you can dive into that real quick.
The Astros just scored 2 runs. It looks like Yordan Alvarez hit another 2-run
Oh
bomb.
my God.
So the Astros are winning 3-2 now. Yeah, he did.
Yeah, sorry,
did.
Luis.
You're on.
I was hyping up Luis Castillo all last stream, and then what does he do? He does that phenomenal
Yeah,
stuff.
I don't know. What I'll say, all right, and the Yankees got to win the series, right? Cleveland scored 1 run in this game, Game 1. I got to give Garrett Cole credit, right? 7 innings, or he went into the 7th. I got to give him credit because it seems like the consensus stat line with Garrett Cole, or that we've seen his past couple starts, it seems like since August, is 7 innings, 4 earned runs. And it looked like he was going to give up another one of those. And in which case, if you're down 4-0 near the Yankees, I get they scored 4 runs, but you can't expect to score that many runs off Cleveland. Luckily, Cal Quantrill, nice pitcher. I think he's underrated. He was good, but victim of the long ball. At home, if the Yankees do lose a game in Cleveland, which probably might happen, they would face him again at home, which that one you might see him as a more dominant pitcher. But you got lucky. You scored 4 runs, but you can't expect to do that. So thank God Garrett Cole got out of that. I got to give him credit. Harrison Bader, and actually unsung hero of this game too, Aaron Judge. Look at his stat line, 0 for 3 with a walk. How could he in a run? How could he be a hero at all? Well, nobody wants to pitch to him. So you pitch to Bader. Fastball down the middle from Quantrill. Into the season left. Bomb. You don't want to pitch to Judge, so you walk him. You pitch to Rizzo.
Absolute nuke.
Nuke into the second deck in Yankee Stadium in right field. And then Trevino also got a sacrifice fly. Due to a Kiner Falefa double, which allowed him to go to third due to an error in right field from Oscar Gonzalez. Right before that, though, looked like a little bit of a rally killer. Josh Donaldson couldn't hit a ball over the short porch of Yankee Stadium, yet he was still jogging. Now, I'm going to be, I'm going to criticize him here, but I'm also going to kind of play devil's advocate and kind of give him some.
I criticize his short porch for existing, because that would never happen.
But yeah, he was confused, right? It looked like maybe a fan touched it. It just looked, and if you watch it, not the slow motion, because when you watch it on slow motion, clearly nobody touched it. It just hit the top of that fence and bounced back in. There's that little plush area where the signs are, bounced off of that back in. When it happened, though, if you watch it live, it looked like maybe a fan touched it. It looked like it went into the stands real quick and then bounced out. So I'll give him credit, right? First base coach giving him a high five because he thought it was going to, right? I get it. But you can't assume anything. You really can. You got to be running because that could have been a double, right? I mean, you can't assume a ball to the short porch in right field. I don't know that because that's like I don't even think that hits the warning track in a lot of stadiums, or
Yeah,
it might just barely.
it might barely, but
Like that's not something you should be jogging to first base
that's
or.
true. That's a fair point.
Yeah, but anyway, no, it's fine. And you know something? Apparently, because I was listening to the post game a little bit, and Michael Kay saying how Aaron Boone was kind of letting Josh Donaldson get away with that, and then kind of, you know, what would you say, like comforting Josh Donaldson, saying it's all right, it's all good, and that you can't really do that because that's a pretty that could have hurt this team, right? That's an issue that you can fix, is also what Michael Kay said. It's not like what kind of Falefa did, where hitting into two double plays and making that error in the first inning. It's not that. That's a mechanical issue. That's something you can't fix through the manager. You're the manager. You could yell at Donaldson or give him a little, just tell him that you got to run. I mean, you don't have to yell, but say you have to run. You can't be jogging to first base there. So that's something to watch out, because I think I think this team could go far. This team could win the World Series, but if they make mistakes like this, easy mistakes that could be simple mistakes that could be fixed, right? We've gone all these years, right, watching this team, or since 2017, right? This team not a very good defensive team. We didn't think it was that big of a deal. We thought, oh, we need a starting pitcher, which we did. We need more dynamic offense. We did. But improving the defense really helped this team a lot. That's an example of a small thing that we changed, improving this team in a big way. This is another example of that, right? Getting guys to hustle. Hustling is so important. I'm all for celebrating, all for it. It's so important. The game needs it. There's a difference between celebrating and not hustling, though.
Yeah,
and you have to hustle.
That's a fair point.
So kind of Falefa's defense could hurt this team in the long run. Who knows? Maybe if hopefully Josh Donaldson runs to first base next time, or these guys run, which there is a lot of hustle in this team. I really feel like Donaldson has done this like 3 or 4 times, though.
Yeah,
these are the little things you have to fix if you want to go far.
I mean, speaking of shortstops, before we head into NFL real quick, Carlos Correa is a free agent this year. Yeah. Do you think the Yankees target this man real quick?
I think they should have targeted him last year, right? Because we knew this was going to happen. He's going to have a good year. It's a glorified 1-year deal is what I was saying it was. A glorified 1-year deal is what it always was. He's going to ask for more money. Players do that. He had a great season, right? I think he was kind of hurt in between there. But
he had like 275-ish.
That's what you get with Correa. You get a solid, decent average, home runs, solid glove, great arm, and maybe a little time on the injury list. Not much, but a little bit. And that's kind of what I would have taken, right? I would have obviously, this team, I like where they ended up, so I'm not going to fully complain or anything, but you put your money to Josh Donaldson, who wasn't terrible. He had some big hits. I'll give him that. He was overall not great, though. Defensively, he was fantastic. Just the bat, not great overall. And I think he could have put that money towards Carlos Correa. But where he's going, I mean, you mentioned a great place. I think an option. I think Bogarts. If I'm talking about the Red Sox, I think Bogarts has a player option. I don't know if he's a free agent.
I believe he's a player option. But it's most from what I've been hearing. It's most like he's going to take it, and it's very possible he takes it because of the money that it is.
Okay, yeah. So then I was going to say that if he
declines it, that's
that you're either going to try to resign him, or maybe Carlos Correa becomes an option for Boston. But you mentioned a great place. What is that place?
I feel like a fun one. Now that hearing about Bogarts. Here's a what-if situation before we dive right into NFL. What if Carlos Correa and Bogarts team up in St. Louis? Their middle infield, granted, Tommy Edman is a phenomenal leadoff hitter. But what if you put both of them up in the middle with Arenado at third? That team would be absolutely crazy. Well, do they have the money for it? Who knows? But let's go back to New York sports. The NFL, crazy as per usual. I feel like that's a very common theme this year. Colin, let's dive right into the New York Giants since they played first for once on Sunday.
Yeah, so leading into this week against the Green Bay Packers, many were anointing the New York Giants as the worst 3-1 football team of all time. And I mean, people, I guess you could have your reasons for it. The Giants didn't be many impressive opponents. I mean, sure, they beat the Tennessee Titans, but I mean, who really is sold on Ryan Tannehill or Derrick Henry at this point? Not many people anymore, apparently. Sure, they beat the Carolina Panthers, but well, they just fired their head coach, Matt Rule, just actually back earlier in this week, so that wasn't very impressive, I guess. And they beat the Chicago Bears, who actually have the Thursday night game tonight that we're going to get into later. But, once again, the Bears have a prehistoric offense, so not very impressive win. So the Giants look like they're going to be playing a real opponent on Sunday. They're going to be playing the Green Bay Packers in London. And this game, it looked like the Giants were going to lose very early on. They were down 17-3, and many other Giants teams that I have watched in the past would basically roll over and lose this football game. But for whatever reason, this is a very different New York Giants team. The Giants came roaring back into this game, scoring 17 unanswered points and holding the Green Bay Packers without any offensive points in the second half to capture a stunning 27-22 victory in London. And man, you really can't say enough about Brian Daboll and what this coaching staff has done. I mean, you're looking at a team that was missing its top 4 best wide receivers. Sterling Shepard's out for the year, but Kenny Galladay, although, I mean, I don't even know if I can say that about Kenny Galladay anymore. I mean, he was still out this game. And the 2 young receivers, Kadarius Toney and Wan'Dale Robinson, both out. So Daniel Jones' top target is Darius Slayton, a guy who, I mean, he had a good rookie season. I really like what he did back then. Him and Jones had a connection. I believe Slayton had 8 touchdowns that year, but 9. But ever since then, Darius Slayton has really been kind of non-existent in this offense. I mean, I forgot that he was even on the team up until this point. I mean, but Darius Slayton, man, 6 catches for 79 yards. He got the job done when his number was called. I mean, they also had Marcus Johnson as wide receiver too. I never even heard of this guy until the game actually. We had also once again, David Sills and Richie James, who surprisingly have been on the field very much more than I would have originally thought. But regardless, there was one drive in particular I want to highlight here. So the Giants were backed up at their own 10-yard line, and Saquon Barkley gets taken out with a shoulder injury. So Daniel Jones is without his top 4 wide receivers and his superstar running back, yet the Giants still marched all the way down the field and scored a touchdown, which Daniel Jones accounted 80 yards towards. And that was really a very impressive drive for Daniel Jones. And once again, as very often is the case with Daniel Jones, it's not going to show on the stat sheet. 21 for 27, 217 yards, no touchdowns and no picks. But man, really impressive game for Daniel Jones. There was even a point there on that drive where his hand started bleeding, yet he still willed the Giants to the end zone. And the Giants are now 4-1. I mean, as crazy as it is to say, the New York Giants are now a 4-1 football team. Their best start since 2009 when they started off 5-0. And honestly, I really can't believe it. I'm just living in the moment right now. I mean, fantastic victory. Really, the New York Giants are, and this is not me just saying this as a biased fan, really are the true story of the NFL season so far. Really, no one thought they were going to be here. I thought there was no chance they were going to be here. The Giants have now matched their win total from the entirety of last year. They had 4 wins all of last year, and now they have 4 wins here. So they have a matchup on Sunday against the Baltimore Ravens, which I'm sure we can get into later. I don't know how they'll do in that matchup. Lamar Jackson has played phenomenal. Wink Martindale is going to be playing his old defense. But, I mean, I've even seen people names get thrown out there, or people talk about it now. Brian Daboll really is looking at, up until this point, possibly as the coach of the year. So, I mean, overall, phenomenal win. Really the best Giants win I think I've seen probably in the past 6 years. I mean, I remember I was saying on the show last week, even if you're going to play competitive against the Packers or the Ravens, that really kind of answers more questions about the legitimacy of the Giants. And stealing that win in a way like that, coming back like that, I mean, what a win. But I want to get Chris and Robbie's take on this. I mean, actually, first I'll go to Robbie here. So from your outsider perspective, what do you make about this Giants team?
They're a fun group. I never thought I would say that again. I said that. I remember saying this years ago. That, the Giants were like Odell Beckham when they really drafted Saquon. They actually used him. This team is fun to watch. They're a very weird, interesting, fun. They're scrappy. They have that new identity that, we're going to be competitive. We don't care that there's 2 better NFC East teams, which on paper there are, even though Cooper Rush is going out of his mind. We don't care about that at all. We're going to keep playing our style of football until people want to stop us. They lost. Who did they lose to again?
They lost to the Cowboys.
They lost to the Dallas Cowboys and Cooper Rush. I feel like they're actually a pretty decent team. Now, I feel like with Daniel Jones, I feel like if you can really get the most out of him and you actually put receivers around him, like when they're all healthy, this Giants team is a playoff team. I'm serious. This Giants team could be very well a playoff team. Their defense, oh my god, they're a very. I feel like this is a New York theme this year. Everyone's good in the second half. I don't know why that is, but it's a fun group. Chris, let's hear your take on it.
Well,
being that this game started very early and I kind of needed my sleep, I caught the very second half of this game, which thank God, because that was the game for the Giants. 14 points in the fourth quarter. I mean, phenomenal. Able to keep Aaron Rodgers. Able to beat Aaron Rodgers for the first time in a very, very long time. I think. How long was the last time?
Oh, I think it was 2011 in the playoffs. I think that was the last time we beat the Packers. Yeah,
that's insane, man.
But
you didn't know.
And
they're incredible. I mean, they're not, like you said, a scrappy team on paper, not fantastic, right? Every time we watch this team, it seems like, I feel like what we got to do, we got to go into every game with low expectations because we always, go into low expectations and we get great results, right? The one game we actually had somewhat decent expectations for was the Cowboys game. What happens? We lose. Right?
Having low expectations, that's a Jets thing, dude. We've established that fact for 6 years. We've used that fact for 6 years.
It's just this is a fun team to watch. And what a change from last year on our podcast, Colin, right? Always having something bad to say. I remember we were listening to my podcast from our junior year or senior year at the beginning of last year and saying how bad things were for the Giants. I remember it was a week after they lost to that the football team, the Commanders.
That was a game.
And then it was right after they lost to the Falcons in week 3, I think it was. They started off 0-3.
Giants. Until this year.
Yeah, it was a field goal at the very end there that won it for the Falcons. I mean, that's how the Giants would lose their games, right?
Mm-hmm.
Be in it and lose the field goal at the end or a touchdown. Most heartbreaking ways. But now they're beating teams, and teams are saying that that's their most heartbreaking loss. So it's just crazy.
So
I'm not used to this.
Before we get into Robbie's Jets, who have also been such a phenomenal story too, so we're going to get into that. I also want to quickly highlight just how on paper this Giants team should not work. So Dory Jackson actually got hurt in the third quarter of this game. So that meant that look at this on paper. Fabian Moreau, cornerback 1. And then we also had Nick McLeod, cornerback 2, a guy who they actually just signed, I believe, off the practice squad or out of free agency. So the Giants' top 2 corners are Fabian Moreau and Nick McLeod, 2 guys who could not secure a roster spot before the season started fully on the team. And yet the Giants still shut out the Packers in the second half. I mean, really just this next man up mentality, just this idea of, guys who kind of were overlooked. I mean, guys who kind of were left aside by the past regime. I mentioned him before previously, O'Shane Ximines, really been a presence off that edge. And he was a guy who was a pick in the Dave Gettleman era who kind of fell to the landslide. And just these guys who on paper, this defense should not be as good as it is. But man, this Giants team is scrappy and it'll play. So I'll hand it off to Robbie about the Jets, but I think we also got to talk about that NFC East. But Robbie, go ahead, talk about how good the New York Jets have been recently.
It's been this long. It feels like you've been asleep for all these years, but this is the first time that both New York football teams have been over 500 since 2009. We were all here in this room. I believe we're all 5 when that happened. You're all 5, but the New York Jets, they did it again. And of course, they had to do it. They had to make it close because it's the Jets. They went out and played the Miami Dolphins, and they injured Teddy Bridgewater on the first play. Shout out to Sauce Gardner. Great sack. Almost sack, by the way. They made a totally legal hit, and they bring in Skylar Thompson out of Kansas State, who I got to watch a little bit before. He is a prototype of running the ball by himself a lot. What did he do? He ran the ball by himself a lot, and he actually almost led this team in rushing. If Raheem Mostert didn't decide to have his best game in 4 years. Raheem Mostert had a good game, 18 for 113 and a score, but the New York Jets said, yeah, we're better than you. They did not decide to have a passing touchdown. Zach Wilson did the bare minimum. Jimmy Garoppolo's kind of stat line, 14-21 for 210, but he did enough. Breece Hall, I feel like, is the most underrated rookie here, other than a couple. There's a couple names up here, but Breece Hall, 18 for 97 and a touchdown. He would have had over 100 if he didn't get TFL'd in late in the fourth. But Michael Carter had 2 touchdowns. Braxton Berrios had a handoff to him. We all thought we were going to see the New York special again, but it was on the 15-yard line, so it made more sense. But Breece Hall, 197 yards on the day. He had a phenomenal game. And the Jets defense, we looked like we had a defense. They had 17 points. Jets scored 21 unanswered in the fourth after the Dolphins missed a field goal to the right. And the Jets are 3-2. And in second, I don't think any of us predicted that, but let's continue the most unpredictable season I think we've seen forever in the NFL and go I'm going to highlight one of the games from last week real quick. The Eagles. Why was this game close? They played the Cardinals, and the Eagles made this way too much harder than they had to. Jalen Hurts did not look like himself. He did not throw for a touchdown for the first time in a game this season, and the first time in his last 8 starts, by the way. That's the first time that's happened. But he's rushed for 2, so I guess that's justified. So I feel like at the end of the day, it's a lot of fun to watch with them. But a game I want to highlight next week real quick before we go into our Thursday night football pick. I mean, the Jets game, you want to look at the Jets game, but I can't do it. I'm going to go with my game of the week. I like the Bills and Chiefs. I forgot they were playing this week. They are playing at 4:20 on Sunday, and that's going to be a fun game to watch. The Bills and the Chiefs, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, a battle of in the AFC playoffs we saw last year that we didn't really get to see fit play out the right way because of overtime being terrible. But due to our shortened time because of our late start in the episode, we had to make our Thursday night football picks, gentlemen. And of course, we had to do one of the worst games I've ever seen after last week. I don't think anything's going to top last week. We have Washington and Chicago. Why? That was I instantly heard about this matchup. I thought, why? Why did this have to be the game for this? But Chris, let's hear your pick first. Washington and Chicago.
Well, I know you guys, what you guys are going to pick. And I'm not going to pick that team. I'm just going to go randomly, right? Because that's just how I usually do my predictions. And you know what? It's going to work one day. I did it for baseball.
It'll work eventually.
I did it for football. I think it worked maybe once. I don't even know. I'm going to say that the Bears win. The Bears are like one of the most boring teams in football. They really do. I mean, obviously the Colts, that game was just crazy, bad, and boring. But what do I have to back me up in this? Not much. I mean, this team's somehow 2-3. The Bears somehow have 2 wins. The Commanders have they're 1-4, but I think playing more teams in the NFC East, those teams have been great. I could say the Bears win. I'm gonna say it's another very boring game. Just like last Thursday night football ratings. I mean, they're still great, but the fans are not getting their money's worth. At least if you have Prime. So
$13 billion from Amazon Prime to the NFL for that.
$80 million for that game.
$80 million for that game. I felt really bad for everyone who watched. I watched the end of it because I found it on a stream on YouTube.
I luckily had work to do.
Oh yeah,
I
think you were saved by that from watching that garbage. It was terrible. I think everyone here, live or watching this on YouTube, can all agree that game was a disgrace to the NFL. That's a better way to put that. I was thinking of saying that.
We're gonna get a similar. I think somehow we're gonna get similar entertainment. I think it's gonna be like, same score as the Eagles game. Let's say 20-17 in favor of the Bears.
Colin, what do you got?
So I'm gonna go opposite Chris. I'm gonna go with the Washington Commanders, and let's talk about the Commanders a little bit. So there are six teams in the NFL that have 4 wins or better, and 3 of those teams shockingly come from the NFC East. Just a couple years ago, this is a division which the Washington Commanders won with 7 wins, and now we have 3 teams that have the best records in the NFL. But the Commanders are not in that category. And just actually this week, Ron Rivera was asked what separates the rest of the teams in this division with Washington, and he said that we have a worse quarterback. Now that is a very bold statement to say, considering this is a division with Daniel Jones and Cooper Rush starting. But regardless, Carson Wentz is been kind of very criticized lately. But I want to bring your guys' attention to one major stat. Carson Wentz's career on Thursday Night Football: 1,443 yards, 15 touchdowns, 2 picks, and a perfect 6-0 record. So obviously, Thursday night is pretty good for him. The Thursday night lights are not too bright for Carson Wentz. I think that will continue. I think that Carson Wentz is a better quarterback than Justin Fields. I think that they'll have a pretty good game. They actually came pretty close to being Tennessee back on Sunday until Wentz made a very bad pick at the end of that football game. But, the Bears also played Minnesota competitive, so I think this could be, a pretty close game. But, and a low-scoring affair, Chris said 20-17. I think that's actually very accurate, but instead I'll go for Washington in that sense. Maybe I'll go 21-16 Washington, but I think the Commanders do get the victory.
Let's see. You talked about Carson Wentz. I want to talk about Justin Fields real quick. Justin Fields this season, through the first 5 games, has as many completed passes as Cooper Kupp having receptions, which is amazing how you can do that. But this game, I feel like everyone's gonna fall asleep again because I feel like that's a Thursday night football trait this year. I'm going with Washington as the tiebreak selection. I mean, I saw the injured list. Everyone's injured, so that's gonna make this game even better. So, well, depending on how you look at it, if you love defense, watch this game. Both of their defenses are both slept on greatly. I'm gonna go with Washington 13-10. I feel like nothing is gonna happen until the second half. And like I feel like it's gonna be 7-7 going to the fourth, and everyone's gonna try to get a field goal, and no one's gonna make anything until like the last 2 minutes, which would be a hilarious way for that to end. And unfortunately, guys, that's all we have for today due to how late we started. But for Colin, Chris, and myself, thank you for watching Into the Stands episode 5. Make sure to tune in to us at 5 o'clock every Thursday. For those watching live, thank you for watching. For those watching on YouTube, we hope to see you guys next time. We'll see you guys next week. That was unfortunate.